Synnibear03 is a YouTuber best known for making a variety of animations on the site since she was a child, raking in over 500,000 subscribers and becoming one of the most well-known members in what is called the animation meme community. However, in September 2024, a document would be released exposing her for grooming a 14-year-old when she was 20 herself, igniting a cascade of events that involve backstabbing, lies, and a roommate who recorded an exposure video on her in the same house in a room right next to her own. And no, I'm not lying about that. Take a listen for yourself.
Okay, I have to be kind of quiet because Cinny is in the other room because she called in sick from work today.
When I saw this video, I knew I was in for an absolutely insane story, and let's just say this intro doesn't do it nearly enough justice for what we're about to get ourselves into. Synnibear03 created her channel in March 2014, but it wouldn't be until a year later when she would upload her very first video on March 21st, 2015, titled How I Met Rainbite, a short 5-minute video comic of sorts featuring characters from the hit 2010s animated TV show My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. It's nothing special or worth a note, with the only things worth pointing out being how crudely drawn it is, as it was very clearly made by a child, and so it comes to no one's surprise that Cindy was actually only 11 years old when she uploaded this to the site, making it a very early beginning to the mainstream internet at such a ripe and young age. For the next couple years, Cindy would post various animations online under her old persona Scootaloo Loves Sans, as she hadn't started going by the Synnibear03 name yet, a blend of her favorite media characters growing up, that being Scootaloo from MLP and Sans from Undertale. Now her videos, despite them being mostly crude and unimpressive in nature, would make waves in the animation meme community, with some getting millions upon millions of views in the process. This was because that whole scene itself was absolutely ablaze in the mid-2010s alongside the general YouTube art scene as well, with many famous artists of the internet today all having their fair share of overlap with them in one way or another. I mean, when you have a kid who's barely a teenager with below average art skills producing a video that got over 20 million views, you can tell just how popular the scene was at the time based on that alone. Hell, the whole scene itself could be its own story due to how deranged it ended up being, but that's besides the point, as the point here is that Cindy made a name for herself early on as a young teenager and was a well-known name throughout the entire community, hitting 100,000 subscribers by November 2017, a little under 3 years into this whole YouTube journey. She would use this momentum to start growing her brand outside the site, such as making a Twitter and Instagram page to post more of her artworks, but it was her DeviantArt page where she would really key in on, as the site is built exclusively for artists such as herself to continue their creative output. Cindy's posts on the site weren't anything out of the ordinary, as she would post various drawings of Scootaloo and Sans together alongside other random stuff, and would even participate in the tried and true artist classic response posts done through the characters and drawing. None of this was out of the ordinary for any artist just trying to have fun with their brand, and it seemed that she was destined to become another popular animation artist on the internet for the rest of her career. That is, however, until some controversy reared its ugly head around the corner, and while it initially started off with an extremely tame example of the kinds of stuff that would get traction in the animation meme community, it's worth going into the show where things all first started to go wrong for her. Around mid-2018, there was some discourse in the general art scene after the topic of same face syndrome became a talking point, a conversation about whether having a similar face for a character in your drawings can not only ruin the character itself, but also your artist skills in general. It's not the most riveting topic in the world, but it's something that artists were well interested in speaking about, including somebody by the name of Twisted Doctor, aka Sleepy King, basically just saying that people who wanted to become a successful artist in the real world need to start drawing their characters with different faces so they can get better at drawing in general. Now, Cindy had already started making art commentary videos by this point in time, and so would hop in on this conversation in her video Same Face Syndrome is Dumb, in which she says that the talking point doesn't exist and was made up by Twisted Doctor despite the concept being something that people have talked about for who knows how long, and only recently started making waves in the general YouTube artist scene in this particular case. Despite the clearly bad take going on here, her young audience would eat it up as she would get over 10,000 likes in the process, with things seeming to end from then onwards. Except, people in the artist and animation meme community scene would end up making response videos pointing out how bad her logic was, videos that she would end up watching and agreeing with some of their points on. This would lead to her deleting her video and posting a part 2, with her stating that she now actually understands what same face syndrome is and was just ignorant beforehand when making her original video on the topic.
I now understand what same-face syndrome actually is, and I know why people acknowledge it. I meant for my video to state my opinion, but it was ruined by false information. So while I'm here, I know same-face syndrome exists. Yes, I have it, but as of right now, I don't believe it's an issue. Once again, I'm up for debate. If you have a differing opinion, leave it in the comments or something, and I'll try to read as many as I can.
This video would be met with a positive response as her fans saw her own up to a bad take even when she didn't need to, given the initial reception on her video was good to them, and it showed that she cared about her public persona even while still being a teenager at the time. This showed that Cindy was someone who thought about her actions and how it could affect others in a positive or negative way, and in turn would do what she felt was right to rectify a situation she might have caused, in this case, misinform people on the topic of same-face syndrome to her thousands of fans. For the next 2 years, Cindy would find herself doing more of the same. More animation memes, more speed paints, more commentaries on YouTube, more art stuff on DeviantArt and her other social medias, and more of growing her online identity and brand in the process. Hell, she even officially changed her name from Scootaloo Loves Sans to Synnibear03 in April 2020 specifically because she felt people used that name to belittle and disrespect her due to how childish it sounded, showing how serious she was taking her career as she grew older. It seemed that she was well into becoming another example of an art YouTuber continuing their career without any more controversy, but it was actually that very same year where things would get rocky for her, and this time, it wasn't over just some dumb little internet drama. In October 2019, people on Synnibear03's DeviantArt account would take notice of a piece of fan art that she drew for another member of the animation meme community, a transgender female-to-male individual by the name of Birdie. For those who don't know about Birdie, let me just tell you that they are fucking crazy straight up, with a whole laundry list of controversies that surprisingly aren't the usual petty, overblown kinds of shit that comes from this corner of the internet. Trust me, I can go on for multiple hours explaining the insanity behind Birdie and all the lore going on there, but I'd rather save that for another video. The only part that isn't relevant to this video that I feel is worth showing is when Birdie admitted to having oral sex with his ferret Chera at just 12 years old because he was apparently tricked into it by somebody named Maddie. Trust me, this isn't even a tenth of the Birdie story, but thankfully the next pieces of info are relevant to the Synnibear03 stuff, so let's get into it. In the aforementioned DeviantArt post, Cindy would talk about how they looked up to Birdie as an artist and are a fan of them and such, making it clear this was the beginning of a budding friendship within the animation meme community. She would continue posting artworks of Birdie now featuring her own character alongside him come February 2020, and in the bio she would state that she had a dream about him, a very odd thing to say. In March, she would continue to draw fan art of Birdie, this time of his character Pinkalicious, and later that same month would make another little piece of fan art featuring Birdie's main online persona as expected. It was clear by this point that Synnibear was now good friends with Birdie and had no issues showing him in a positive light to her fan base, but little did anyone know, Birdie was far from this positive individual that Cindy was portraying him to be like. In May 2020, a YouTube account named evidence_found01 would appear on YouTube, and throughout the next couple days would drop a handful of videos exposing Birdie for harassing and stalking her ex-partner Heimguts/Unicorn Tears/ other names on screen that you could read if you want. This would start around the beginning of 2020, going as far to dox her face to a group chat he was in, and an unknown person from that same group chat would straight up dox her full name on the video she uploaded as well. He would also make a plan to spam her Twitter to further harass her more because of course he would, and then would just straight up tell the group chat that they need to continue harassing and attacking her. Birdie and his partner Racco were just two of the many people seen stalking and being part of this harassment, but that's not even the craziest part, as it turns out that Synnibear03 herself was part of this group chat and knew about what was going on and knew about how deranged and obsessive Birdie was acting. Despite knowing how crazy Birdie is and was being, she would still go on to promote him in a positive way to her fans as seen by those March 2020 DeviantArt posts, a fanbase full of minors just as young if not younger than herself, of a person who very clearly is completely fucked in the head. Cindy would even partake in the harassment herself at one point, clearly having a good time alongside others, and again, while she wasn't doing shit like doxing Heimguts herself, she knew what was going on and still stayed around the group for whatever the reason may have been. Evidence_found01 was a big hitter in the Birdie drama as they were a vital source in exposing even more of the already deranged shit that they were known for, and so as more and more people learned of Birdie's completely unhinged nature, some started to look more into Cindy herself seeing how she was part of this group chat. They would come to notice that Cindy, despite promoting Birdie in a positive light before the news dropped, would continue to do so after the news came out to her audience, as in June 2020 she would start up a new comic series of sorts called Vent Gang featuring her, Birdie, and other animators Sashley and Laurel. This series would consist of drawings featuring the four in appealing and positive ways, such as Birdie being represented as the season Autumn when using their characters to represent the seasons of the world. However, for those who knew about the Birdie drama going on, these were very clear misrepresentations of Birdie as a person, as he was anything but a positive influence, and knowing that Cindy knew this yet still tried to make him seem appealing to the public, a slow growing dissent would start to form against her within the animation meme community. People also started to speculate if this was Cindy projecting her crush onto Birdie in her artworks, as it had become a theory given how strangely positive her representations of him were, and let's just say they weren't exactly wrong on this one. In early January 2021, Evidence_Found01 would drop a new video about Synnibear herself, in which they revealed that Cindy indeed did have a massive crush on Birdie, showing drawings that Cindy made very clearly implying as such. I mean, you even have this August 2020 drawing where Cindy and Birdie are cuddling in bed together. You can't really make it any more obvious than it already is at this point. But it is interesting to dig into the nitty-gritty going on here, such as Cindy making a plushie character of Birdie that past July, and a conversation where Cindy very clearly has the hots for Birdie when talking with a friend about a comic she was drawing. She even admits to trying to snatch Birdie away from her current love interest and how it made her feel a little bad, showing this crush wasn't just a crush, but a straight-up obsession. This wasn't just a normal obsession, however, but a very clearly unhealthy one, as the friend would try their hardest to get it through her head that Birdie is fucking crazy, such as bringing up the time he stabbed his parents with a fork and how it is a terrible idea to obsess over someone like this, in which they wouldn't budge as they were deluding themselves with the logic, yeah, but I can fix it. The biggest kicker, however, was a screenshot from December 2019, way before Evidence_Found01 even posted their first couple videos on Birdie, in which Cindy admitted to someone that she had a crush on Birdie, meaning the entire time Birdie was harassing Heimguts in that group chat in early 2020, Cindy continued to crush on and become more and more obsessed with him as the year progressed despite knowing how messed up he is. The leaks from this video will start to go around like wildfire, as this meant that Cindy's obsession with Birdie was blinding her from the very clear red flags that was going on, and in turn this blindness was having her push the notion that Birdie is just any normal person onto her young and impressionable fan base. They will also take notice of a series that she was running on her DeviantArt, a series that was basically an Undertale's alternate universe take that included her custom character Nightmare Sans. Honestly, the series is whatever, just another teenage girl having fun with ideas running in her head, but there was one controversy surrounding the character that would catch the attention of some of her detractors. You see, there was this one post she made featuring the character back in January 2020, a year ago, when she referred to Nightmare Sans as her, quote, angry, abusive husband that doesn't fully understand love. Her detractors would see this as they're trying to romanticize abusive relationships, given a cutesy uwu speak, and so they would use this as another example to go after her. That is despite already apologizing for the drawing literally as her very next DeviantArt post was saying she was just trying to joke around with it, but whatever, it was just more ammo to add to the fuck Synnibear03 hate train that was rapidly forming. At this point, the animation meme community was starting to turn on Cindy, mainly due to seeing her infatuation and obsession with Birdie and how it put her own fanbase at risk of his wrath alongside the other things we went over, and so Cindy herself saw this wasn't going to die down anytime soon and that she needed to get to the bottom of everything as quick as she could. So, on January 17th, 2021, she would upload a video titled We Need to Talk, a quick 1.5 minute explanation telling people to ask their questions as she planned a proper response video soon.
Hi. We need to talk. I think there's a point when drama just kinda goes a little too far. I've been ignoring it for a bit too long, and I think it's about time that I made a video addressing some of the things that people have been saying about me. I'm not going to be addressing them in this video. This video is about something a little different. I'm in the process of scripting a video, but something came to mind. While I do know certain things that I want to talk about, I don't really know what you guys are worried about. So I thought of this little gimmick that I could explore in the next video. If you have some sort of complaint that I'm probably not thinking of right now, then you can leave it in the comments and I can bring it up in my video and we can have a discussion about it. A rational, civilized discussion between me and you. So I can apologize for some of the things I did and try to defend myself against the things that people have been saying that were wrong.
The thing is, after posting this video, nothing would be heard from her for months as she would basically go radio silent. In fact, the most notable thing of all were the multitude of comments with thousands upon thousands of likes telling Cindy that her infatuation and obsession with Birdie was very clearly starting to negatively affect her as her influence was growing as time progressed. And while that is normally some extremely parasocial shit to care about in any kind of context, the fans actually had a decently good reason to be parasocial in this case given just how batshit fucking insane Birdie is and Cindy's inability to see that. Many people within the ACC will make videos trying to force Birdie into releasing a response as they were getting fed up with weeks of nothing, and it seemed that she had literally nobody on her side during the production of it. That would change on April 15th, 2021, as somebody by the name of Gator Creation will upload their own video on the matter, a video that had a much different take than what the public was running with at the time. The main overarching theme is that a lot of people going after Cindy are using this situation to just be straight up assholes rather than actually trying to give her proper advice to better herself. It goes into detail on the insanely petty and childish parts of the drama that aren't worth talking about because, well, it's like bullshit that only 12-year-olds care about that only in this corner of the internet will gain any traction, period. The video would basically knock some sense into her detractors and make them realize a lot of shit being slung her way was stupid and petty, and in fact, Cindy herself will comment on the upload thanking Gator for being able to break things down for others to understand as she was still in the middle of working on her response video. On May 12, 2021, almost 4 months later, Cindy will upload apologizing for my wrongdoings, a 35-minute dive giving people the apology video that she announced almost half a year ago. In said apology, she shows off some new info such as her being against Birdie's plans to continuously dox and harass Heimguts, context that was never brought up due to people trying to make her look as bad as possible. However, she still defends Birdie by stating that she believes he's not an evil person and capable of change, which given all that we have seen by this point, yeah, that was clearly just her admiration for him seeping through once again.
That being said, I don't think he's an evil person. He's someone who has a lot to learn and tends to make poor decisions. I don't think it's fair to judge me for associating with certain people. Just because I'm friends with someone doesn't mean I agree with everything they do. I don't think I should have to defend him to my audience. He should be defending himself. His problems aren't for me to deal with. I don't want to be defined by my friendship with him. I'm still Cynthia and he's Birdie. We are two different people. His bad actions should not reflect on me because I do not support them. I'm not going to ignore the fact that he's done bad things. He's done bad, like, a lot, but I think he's completely capable of changing.
She even explains her mindset when it came to making that artwork that showed off the abusive relationship stuff, saying that this is her expressing the feeling of angst, but confusing that emotion with the stigma of abuse due to simply being young and naive rather than trying to do something malicious with it.
As I've said earlier, I misused the word abuse. I do not think domestic abuse should be romanticized in any way. I was unaware of the severe connotations behind the word, thinking that it could be used interchangeably with jerk or bully. Using the word abuse was extremely inappropriate and I will not use it again now that I understand the severity. I never intended to downplay abusive relationships, and I'm sorry to any fellow abuse victims who may have seen the abuse picture and felt like you were being mocked. I intended for the interactions between me and Nightmare to be menacing and uncomfortable, but again, I said abusive. I'm sorry I hadn't thought of better ways of explaining myself and resorted to using that word so many times.
Though this situation was pretty tame and she had already apologized for it, seeing her explain why she did it helped quell her haters as they came to understand there was no ill intent from her, just a misuse of language overblown by people trying to look into every tiny little thing they could find to paint her in the worst light possible. The video was a success as Cindy was able to explain herself in a way that didn't sound like she was trying to dodge accountability or responsibility, but rather properly explain to her audience her thought process on how each situation was going down or why she acted a certain way, with many comments giving their approval. On top of that, she was now 2 for 2 on apology videos, and this time, it wasn't just for stuff that was petty bullshit. In a video by art commentary member Streamline Workshop talking about everything a few months later in August that year, Cindy would even reveal that she was no longer friends with Birdie and had distanced herself from him, seeming to finally get it through her head that the dude is trouble and being around him is a bad idea. The rest of 2021 seemed to be heading in the right direction for Cindy. She got rid of Birdie and continued on with her slew of content, showing her new era of the channel coming to light as she moved past all this. She even made a Discord server that past summer to chat and hang out with fans in her free time, and overall, it seemed that this whole situation was put past her officially. However, Cindy, despite leaving Birdie behind, still had this obsessive nature tucked away during this time period, but that would come out later that very same year with a brand new person she caught an eye for. On September 6, 2024, over 3 years since her last controversy, an Instagram account will pop up called Addressing Synnibear03, in which they reveal themselves as a former friend who decided to expose her for awful things behind the scenes. They would attach an 111-page Google document discussing their issues with her, and while some of it is a bit pedantic and grasping at straws, the parts that had useful info were actually some really interesting stuff that would catch the eyes of many. The first major part we should go over is how Cindy had a habit of posting or talking about NSFW topics around minors in her Discord server. For example, in her server there's a specific rule against NSFW material or topics being talked about because it's 13+, therefore there are minors in the server. However, she would go on to post an image in the future directly telling her members that she doesn't have an issue with people drawing NSFW artworks of her character despite literally making a rule talking about this kind of stuff, basically just breaking her own rule because she was being dumb about it. And mind you, she knew damn well there were minors in the server as the writer of the doc would show screenshots from the introduction room of kids as young as 13 introducing themselves, again showing just how stupid Cindy was being. This could further be seen with her posting gore artwork to the server despite again, knowing there are minors within, showing the act of doing this dumb stuff wasn't a slip off the back of her head, but something that she had been doing and never really cared to think about how inappropriate it was to be doing it around children. In fact, it seemed that some members were aware of the act of posting NSFW stuff around kids, as while the image on screen itself isn't anything much, talking about sexual positions and them knowing enough to write NSFW with the react emotes means it was common to see Cindy act like this. She would even be seen asking in the general chat on how to find a character AI software that she could use to participate in NSFW activity, again showing just how stupid she is being with their inability to keep this to places only adults would be around. There's even a message from November 2023 of her acknowledging that her audience is full of minors, yet as we've seen, she's continued to act weird around them despite this self-admission. While there are many more similar examples to be shown, I think y'all get the point already, but don't worry, because the next set of information in some ways is actually worse than the last. You see, sometime in 2021, Cindy would become interested in the game Friday Night Funkin', more specifically, a popular Friday Night Funkin' mod called the Witty mod featuring an anthropomorphic bomb character aptly named Witty. One of the devs of the mod is known as Sock.clip, better known simply as Sock, a minor at the time of Cindy discovering the character, and notably in their Instagram bio they would say they don't want people to ship any of their characters with others, a huge no-no in the art community to ignore as that's a big deal to some people. To Synnibear03, however, she could care less as she was getting absolutely obsessed with Witty and drew a multitude of fan art featuring him and her personal character together doing whatever she felt like at the time. And when I say a multitude of images, I mean at least 15 plus on her DeviantArt account alone, with them ranging from tame, simple pieces to more risque, bordering on the NSFW side of things, but not really anything that bad to be honest. However, Cindy knows how the artist scene is like and how not listening to someone asking to not do weird shit with their character and ignoring that can make her look bad, but she didn't care because her obsession had moved on from Birdie, someone who is at least a real person, to someone who is a made-up character from a video game. Like, it was getting really bad, and she would go on to make a whole comic series featuring Witty despite knowing Sock's wishes as seen in her Instagram bio, and it was clear Cindy just straight up didn't give a fuck because drawing the ship art made her happy. In fact, she would be seen in her Discord saying how they think Sock is sensitive about the Witty stuff going on, and in fact, they would even end up blocking Cindy after seeing the comic and realizing how creepy it is, but she continued drawing him anyways because her obsession controlled her thought process at this point. Now, it wasn't just Witty that she got obsessed with, it was also another character of Sock's named Boy, a big blue smiley face creature kind of guy, in which she would also start to draw artworks of him as well. Things would eventually reach a boiling point as Cindy would start to draw Boy in NSFW scenarios, with the straw breaking the camel's back being this art piece Cindy drew asking Boy to have sex with her in August 2022. This would cause Sock to unblock her to tell her to stop with all this in a public thread, and Cindy would get so upset by this and the backlash that she was facing for being creepy that she would eventually apologize in October, saying that she didn't realize that Sock hated what she was doing that much and that she'll stop drawing Sock's characters from that point onwards. She says that despite Sock literally blocking her because of the creepy shit she was doing with Witty, but whatever. It's obvious she was so blinded by her obsession with the character that she just ignored the reasoning behind it until Sock had to set her straight with the Boy situation, and only then did she finally understand how uncomfortable she was making them feel. Funnily enough, Sock and Cindy would talk it out in DMs, and once Cindy apologized personally, Sock wouldn't even reply and block her, showing just how much they did not fuck with her not one bit. Now honestly, both the Discord and Sock.clip situations were on a little bit of the tamer side of things here. Well yeah, the Discord stuff isn't good, it's not the worst thing in the world, and very clearly showed that she was just being reckless at worst with minors in the server, but not grooming them in any way. She grew up in these art circles since she was a child, and now that she was an adult, instead of getting her act together, she would continue acting like a child with the way she went about showing her art and admiration for it or other people. While I've seen this before, it's different when it's someone who is 18 to 20 years old still frankly acting like a complete child with this kind of stuff. So if anything, the worst thing here was just a real sense of immaturity going on. That same kind of immaturity can be seen with the Sock.clip situation involving their characters, except there's an extra layer of some real creepiness going on as well. While yes, to most people on the internet outside of art circles, they would simply just not give a fuck about any of the drawings, but in the artist scene, you're supposed to be more considerate due to a lot of people tending to really care about their product in general, something that Cindy knows about because she's been a part of these circles for almost half her life by this point. However, she didn't care about Sock's wishes until Sock had to come out and make it clear she was being a creep to the public, and at that, it seems she didn't truly grasp just how creepy she was being, as in conversations with random people in her Discord, she comes off like she's only reflecting on the backlash itself rather than the reason she deserved it to begin with. The weird part is that she seems to understand why she got this backlash based on the response she made, so to see her come back to this mindset showed her being unable to fully get it through her head why she was in the wrong for what she was doing, instead pushing it onto Sock saying they're being sensitive, which while it's possible that her statement is true, her immaturity and lack of understanding boundaries, funnily enough, is leading her to act even more sensitive about this whole situation involving Whitty and Boy. If she just got it through her thick skull that she was being a creepy gooner about Sock's characters, things would have ended on a much easier note, but that realization never came until Sock had to step in on their own. Now this situation would make its way around Cindy's circles, so much that just a few days later she'd make a YouTube community tab post saying that she'd be responding to it in a couple days as she was on a vacation with someone named Jack. Who is this Jack person she speaks of? Why, none other than Birdie himself, as he would go on to make his very own similar post on Twitter, with Cindy now actually living with him in the same goddamn apartment together despite stating that she'd be cutting him off for good years ago. This revelation made it clear that Cindy was not making the right bare bones basic choices in her life, as Birdie is fucking crazy and it's pretty easy for anyone who knew the Birdie lore to see that, but her obsession with him was so much that she just not only had to become friends with him again, but now decided to live with him as her lust for him was blinding her yet again. Birdie had also recently come back to the internet with the video posted earlier that year, a video that while is so insanely perplexing to watch, this is a Synnibear03 video and not a Birdie one, so I won't be breaking it down, but let me just play you a snippet of it to show y'all just how utterly bizarre it is.
Hi, my name is Jack, or Lucifer. My pronouns are he, it. I'm 19. I'm aroaced and gay, ooh la la. My favorite colors are red, black, and yellow. I'm a demon kitty. I love rainbows and tacos and cats and randomness. I love scene and decora K and emo, but that's pretty obvious, isn't it? I have evil autism.
This type of shit goes on for another 2 hours, but I think you guys get the point already. Now I know it's rather parasocial to give a shit about who lives with who when it comes to random internet people, but moving in with Birdie was a straight up stupid move that Cindy was unable to grasp, otherwise, you know, she would have stayed far away from him to begin with like she initially said she was doing when cutting him off. But that's besides the point, as the point here is that Cindy now had a new controversy to respond to, a controversy that while wasn't the worst thing in the world and someone could very easily come back from this by admitting fault due to their recklessness, was just the beginning in what would become one of the craziest chain of events I've ever seen in my time online. On September 15th, 2024, somebody by the name of Enno would drop an 188-page Google document exposing Synnibear03 for grooming them when she was 20 and Enno was just 14 years old. Now thankfully, while the document sounds like a whole lot of stuff to dig through, it's mostly just really big screenshots, so thankfully it's not that bad, and Enno doesn't mess around as they would start off showing back in February that year, making it clear they were a 14-year-old minor to Cindy when they were talking to each other. Synnibear, now knowing that Enno is a young teenager, would then start to crack jokes about them such as calling them a fetus, and would then show her disappointment how she can't show off her NSFW pictures that she's drawn because they're so young, meaning that she knows talking in any NSFW fashion with this person is a bad thing to do. However, this wouldn't stop Cindy from talking to Enno in some type of way, mainly just showing her sexual fantasies and sexual comments about some big character that she was thirsting over, marking this the beginning of what was to come. This big character would be none other than what her profile picture suggests, as it was Boy, Sock Clip's character from earlier that Sock already made it clear to Cindy to stop being such a creep about. Well, Cindy would continue her obsession with Boy behind the scenes, with Enno being one of the people she confided in her obsession with. These very clearly NSFW conversations with a minor was pretty bad, and it would continue on with lines such as Beej, chubby boy / male is a thirst emoji, awful thought but sit on me please, I'm an ass man what can I say, I love butts, cannot lie, don't tell the public I'm depraved, as she clearly didn't give a shit she was talking to a minor about adult stuff like this. She would even show off some new art pieces she made of Boy and her character, such as him holding her close after beating up a couple copies of Sans, or another of Boy holding down Sans during a fight and claiming in the text that they're horned up on a Tuesday night, I'll be quiet, ooh woo, straight to Enno's face. While there are many examples of this blatant NSFW talk with Enno, it would be redundant to go through each and every single one, but that's okay as Cindy would go into forward an NSFW story she wrote for an anonymous friend to Enno, a story that I can't fully show on screen for very obvious reasons other than a small snippet of Boy giving Nightmare Sans some interesting time together in bed, let's just say. She would continue to talk about sexual topics with the minor as the grooming continued onwards, even showing off a roleplay bot she made of Boy to fulfill her lustful nature for the character. At one point, she would mention a comic she made that includes hypersex, whatever that means, but that she's afraid to send it to Enno because of the material within, saying that she'll censor it if she does. Now what might this comic be, you may be asking yourself? Why none other than a comic where multiple copies of Boy are rapping Nightmare Sans in explicit detail for the minor to see, a comic that I obviously can't show you guys save for a small few panels because I'd rather like to not get a channel strike today. It truly is some of the most deranged shit I've seen in a good minute coming from this side of the internet, and if there was any possible defense that Cindy might have had up to this point in the document, her career was completely done for by the time people got to this part. The rest of the document would be miscellaneous posts further showing how disgusting Cindy was treating Edo during her time knowing him. But people got the message by now as it was time to spread the story around to warn people about Synnibear03 to the wider internet. Now, as the story of Cindy grooming a minor went nuclear in the animation meme, slideshow commentary, and even art commentary communities, many videos would be made spreading the news around by multiple people. However, it was Birdie, Cindy's roommate, who would become the forefront of all this, as on the very day the document dropped, he would upload a video titled, "My roommate groomed a 14-year-old, I need help," a 32-minute dive into things from their point of view. In said video, he opens up by explaining that Cindy is in the room right next to him and that he has to be quiet because of that. And knowing how crazy Birdie is, it's not exactly shocking to see them act in such a boneheaded way like this.
Okay, I have to be kind of quiet because Cindy is in the other room because she called in sick from work today.
He would then get into detail on his life living with Cindy, such as not having a job due to disabilities and getting government benefits because of that, but that's apparently all caught up in issues, so they got $0 in the bank now. This is only 5 minutes into the video, and it was clear it wasn't just trying to explain what Cindy did, but to also beg for money to move away from her as quickly as possible. I mean, when you got Birdie saying things such as, quote, "I'm too disabled to work" within the first 5 minutes and then spilling everything else for the audience to see, it makes things pretty obvious to see here. There's nothing particularly interesting in the runtime as we've gone over most of the stuff in the document, that is, except for the very end when going into this story about how he's broke and needs money and how Cindy is evil and such. He then plays an animation he made of his and Cindy's characters dancing on stripper poles side by side together. The juxtaposition going on here is insanely fucking bizarre, but this is honestly the most on-brand thing Birdie could have possibly done for those who know him and his internet antics. So in a funny way, all this did was add some extra juice to the entire story going on here. In the description of the video, Birdie would post a GoFundMe asking for $10,000 for people to help him move out and get away from Cindy. The GoFundMe would reach its goal within 24 hours after it was posted, an insane feat that I literally remember keeping up with every hour or so, refreshing the page because I couldn't believe how many people were willing to support him despite being an insanely crazy person in the past. It seemed that this would finally be the redemption arc that Birdie fans have been begging for the past half a decade, but we'll get more into that later on. The most important thing to take of note was that Cindy would upload a video the day the doc dropped admitting she was a child groomer and that she'd be dipping from the internet from that point onwards, ending this short saga in less than a week.
But the most serious thing I've done is I've groomed a minor. I became friends with a 14-year-old after I made a mental note to myself to not become friends with minors again, and I overshared with them. I shared graphic, explicit materials with them when I shouldn't have. I groomed this child, and I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I betrayed everyone who looked up to me.
She would give her Discord server to Laurel before they decided to shut everything down given how screwed the entire situation going on is, with people ready to move on after another job exposing a freak online well done. Well, my friends, as you can see by the extremely large remaining runtime, this wouldn't be the end of the Synnibear03 story, because if there's one thing we know about these corners of the internet, it's that every single person here is straight up fucking crazy. Now right off the bat, people started to notice that Birdie, despite the situation being actually serious and not overblown unlike the majority of dumbass internet drama that comes around these circles, will start to make various tweets that read in a very tone-deaf way, like the ones that have been scrolling on screen. When you take a look to read them word for word, it was clear that Birdie was treating this in a ooh woo XD I'm so random lols kind of way just based on the typography going on here, and so that would rub a lot of people the wrong way in the process for obvious reasons. The constant celebratory and jovial nature was just really bizarre to see from an outsider perspective, because to most people, this is frankly weird as shit to see such a level of immaturity like this, but this is just how Birdie is as a person, with this attention-seeking behavior just being part of his very being. The best examples of this bizarre nature would first be with this fan art he drew quote-unquote stealing Synnibear's old Scootaloo persona despite everything going on, and one would think you would avoid any associations connected to her at all, but I digress. The most outlandish example, however, would be when after Birdie updated people about Cindy's whereabouts, he would admit to breaking into Cindy's apartment just a day after the allegations and placed a hat that says groom on it on her bed. Given the other posts we just saw, it was clear that Birdie was starting to make the situation about himself with these constant posts on Twitter, and the appalling nature of his actions left many shocked, as only the most unhinged of people tend to act like this, showing that Birdie is still the same person as before despite dipping out from the internet a couple years ago and trying to claim otherwise recently. On the flip side, there was still some more stuff coming out about Cindy, such as when somebody by the name of Yuri uploaded a video days after the exposure happened, in which they revealed that Cindy had an alt account on Instagram called LollyMolly2006 where she pretended she was younger and drew in a childlike fashion in order to relive the old days before she got popular online. There's nothing inherently interesting about this account as none of the drawings stick out here, it's just bizarre that Cindy even made it to begin with. Some do try to use this as evidence of her perverted nature, but honestly, I can buy the theory it was really just a side project in a childish art style as a way of expressing herself. Back to Birdie. He will show off some text Cindy sent to a mutual friend of theirs on September 29th, in which Cindy states, quote, "I'm so unbelievably pissed off. I'm killing Jack." There would be more of her ranting to her friend, and it was very clear she was going through the motions emotionally, but most interestingly, she would state how she still loves Birdie during this ranting, showing that obsession with him is still going as strong as ever. Cindy would then tell this friend that she bought a knife, pepper spray, and a crowbar in order to protect herself, fearing someone was in her apartment waiting to attack her, and was also looking to get a gun as well. This was getting to some pretty crazy levels, but things would get weird as it turns out on the day prior, Cindy actually took down her apology video off YouTube, meaning that things were still afoot behind the scenes. This would mark the beginning of the newest turn the situation had taken, a complete U-turn that involved an outside name very few people had heard about until then. Say hello to Kumo, a member adjacent to the art commentary community who had been trying to make a career for himself for a while now. He had a reputation for being a bit nutty to say the least, and so a lot of people didn't like him, but he would still take a look at the Synnibear03 situation in order to cover the story and grow his channel. However, instead of coming to the normal conclusion that Synnibear is probably a child groomer, he instead believed that Enno was actually sent by a detractor of Cindy's to bait her into speaking sexual with him, basically saying it was one massive gay op to frame Synnibear03 and ruin her life in a livestream that he made.
In fact, this thing between Cinny and Enno is only being weaponized because it is convenient. These guys already didn't like Cinny. They've already established that they want Cinny like gone and dead. Enno, who's friends with Soph, reaches out to Cinny and pesters Cinny for like 3 months and like begs and pleads and pries and even gives her gifts, desperately trying to get her attention and to get her to like let her guard down and be friends with her. It's no f***ing coincidence, is it? That person was friends with Soph, and then now Soph is like the one is now the one leading the charge, being like, no, that's grooming, that's bad. Like, it's very obvious. Like, call it what it is, dude. Call it what it is. It's a gay op. This is yet another attempt to burn someone they failed to burn the first time because they didn't have anything concrete. And this time, they still don't have anything concrete. They don't have anything to prove the claims they're making. They're just relying very desperately on all of you watching right now to be the worst, to give Cinny the worst faith possible.
He says all this despite the evidence being to the contrary, but I digress. Kumo also claims that Birdie is a scammer, as he saw in the title, and though there was no evidence for this at the time and he was going strictly on hearsay, vibes, and his past behaviors, I figure it's worth mentioning that before we move on here. Now that livestream was posted on September 27th, and as we know, Cindy took down her response video the next day, meaning that there was clearly stuff going on behind the scenes from the both of them and we just had to wait and see what was in store. In fact, it will come out very soon after this stream that Kumo was working with Cindy behind the scenes, meaning that it was clear he was the first step in trying to revive her career, putting his own at risk for reasons only he truly understands. He would get completely shit on in the comments due to the fact the story is very cut and dry, but that's besides the point, as the point here is that Kumo and Cindy were now working together to make a new response video, but little did they know things will only get even worse for the both of them in the process. On September 30th, 2024, Cindy will upload her brand new response video, a 36-minute dive into the allegations and her defenses for herself. However, when I say the video is dog shit, I truly mean it, as it is full of some of the worst defenses I have ever seen someone write down in a script after planning it with other people, mind you, and thinking to themselves, yeah, this will definitely get my career back on track. For example, she shows off this page of what technically constitutes for grooming so she could play semantics, and one of those semantical points was, and I'm not even fucking around right now, saying that quote, Eno was actually already isolated when they first met me, as if that somehow makes her look better.
I did not isolate Eno. Eno was actually already isolated when they first met me.
This was within the first 3 minutes of the video, and when I heard this, I knew I was in for some absolutely Kino content, and trust me, it only gets crazier from here. Cindy goes on to say how she never put in any effort to gain Eno's trust as they were a trustworthy person, ironically enough showing how easy it was for her to get close to him without even realizing it. She then goes on to say that they barely talked about sexual topics, but rather sadomasochism and sadistic fantasies, as if that really makes things better here.
Now that I think about it, majority of the inappropriate conversations we had revolved around sadomasochism and like sadistic fantasies, not really sex. Sex was definitely brought up, but it was never my intention to educate Eno about it.
I mean, I appreciate the honesty, but the fact she was saying these things to defend herself rather than admit to her faults was pretty insane to listen to. She continues to play semantics by stating how she wasn't particularly interested in Eno, but was still very clearly interested in them enough given what we've already seen. Says that because she's a straight woman and only into men that she wasn't grooming Eno, despite again, what we've already seen, and basically tries her hardest to play semantics to the most pedantic degree one can do. Part of me doesn't really blame her for trying, as shit, I mean the ship is sinking, but when the defenses are straight up fucking retarded, well, that's when things crumble apart furthermore. The defensive being so bad wasn't shocking once Cindy name dropped Kumo in the video, making it clear he was involved in helping formulate the response in whatever way that was.
Kumo has been very critical of child predators and people who enact performative vigilante justice online for validation or personal gain. It was explained to me that my understanding of grooming was clearly warped, and these conversations just sounded like, I'm quoting Kumo, locker room girl talk.
Yes, Sunny and Kumo dumbed down her conversations with Eno simply as locker room girl talk. Forget the fact that Eno was 14 and Cindy was 20, old enough to be her coach in the locker room, mind you. This was very clearly just throwing shit at the wall until something stuck, and unfortunately for them, nothing stuck here. That's not even mentioning this one part where Cindy admits to encouraging Eno to engage in NSFW behaviors by having him create a little comic strip only to not go into detail about it because it's a bad look, only calling it quote, weird and cringy, but that's besides the point as I think you get what I'm saying already. This attempt to defend herself was straight up stupid as it did nothing but make her look way worse than she already did, but we still have a whole 27 more minutes to go over her experiences living with Birdie. After the first 9 minutes, Cindy then gets into all the stuff going on pertaining to Birdie, such as claims of sexual assault when they were living together and how he was lazy and never got a job to help out with rent. The sexual assault claims are already very spotty given Birdie's track record, and also the fact he admitted to consenting to certain events beforehand in his video asking for money from people, with Cindy claiming that retracting his consent after their actions together and conveniently now when she was in hot water was an attempt to slander her name furthermore. She also just straight up calls a GoFundMe a scam because the intentions behind it were overblown by Birdie according to her.
Jack's selling point on the GoFundMe that raised over $10,000 in like 3 days was that he didn't feel safe living with me anymore. As if I'm some sort of evil, deranged, violent rapist that was gonna groom Jack next for saying awful shit about me in the next room.
However, if you take notice, the reasons that Cindy sarcastically lists off weren't the reasons why Birdie wanted to move out. Birdie wanted to move out because Cindy groomed Eno, and being around someone like that is pretty gross. The fact she doesn't seem to understand that, which while makes sense given her whole mindset, shows more just how deluded she was in her attempts to get the heat off her back in whatever way she could. As far as Cindy ranting about Birdie being a lazy asshole and such goes, it's really hard to feel pity for her because everyone knows that Birdie had a big track record online of being a very unreliable person, and so anyone with a working brain would know that it would be a disaster to live around him. Like, I get the frustration going on, but her obsession and infatuation led to her making the bad choice to live with him in the first place, so all I can say is you reap what you sow. In fact, the sections talking about Birdie are very clearly more emotional than the Eno one, as she was still feeling the pain of being betrayed by somebody that she loved, but again, it's hard to feel any pity because she invited him back into her life before all this came crashing down.
I love him so much, but I can't help but feel like I was used. I did everything for him. I loved him, and I thought he loved me. And I feel like he wanted me to kill myself. He's taken everything from me, and he's laughing at me. He's mocking me when I thought he loved me. I genuinely hope he is safe. I still love him. Even after seeing all this, I still love him. I don't know why he's acting like this. I know he has borderline personality disorder, so I really hope that this is just him splitting on me, and maybe later down the line he'll come to his senses and realize that I'm not the monster he's saying I am.
It was clear that Synnibear03, to put it bluntly, failed at convincing people to take her side, as not only did she already admit to everything prior, her rebuttals are straight up fucking crazy to listen to in real time, alongside half the video just ranting about Birdie and living with him despite everybody knowing about his antics and knowing he was going to be a liability one day. However, there was still one more event worth talking about, and that's when a new Google Doc was released on October 9th, a thankfully 12-page long document that reveals unlike the Eno situation where she wasn't seeking a relationship, she was in this case. However, the main kicker here is that Cindy was 17 and the other person was 14 when they met, meaning this was just a 3-year age gap that started when they were both minors. These kind of age gaps aren't problematic, and so I feel it would be wrong to cast judgment on a relationship between people that met before the older person was even an adult, but I figured to mention its existence for those who might be interested. However, there was something more notable, and that was when her close friend of many years, Laurel, would be the one to hint at this relationship just a week early on October 1st, meaning even Cindy's closest friends are now cutting her off for good. Meanwhile, in Kumo's corner, seeing that his attempts to help Synnibear get back to the limelight failed and now his career was over, would have one more trick up his sleeve. Days after Cindy dropped a response video and the complete disaster it was, he would make a community tab post on October 4th basically saying that he'll stop defending Cindy but that he still wants to go after Birdie. The post reads in a very particular way, as it was clear he was trying to downplay his involvement in defending her, outright saying that he's, quote, very glad he never defended Cindy despite literally doing exactly that in his stream and working with her on her response video, and it was clear this response was made because public opinion wasn't going in their favor. It's whatever though, the Synnibear03 story was officially over for now. Surely there wouldn't be a third notable person who would get involved and blow things up far bigger than it already was, right? Right? On October 12th, just a few weeks later, YouTuber Just a Robot aka Jar would drop a video defending Cindy from the allegations, and when I tell you this video is awful, I truly mean it. It is one of the worst defense videos I've ever seen in my time online. For example, one of his defenses for Cindy is that she mostly sent softcore NSFW images instead of hardcore, as if that somehow makes things better, and that because she sent the hardcore comic blurred in some parts that she's somehow a better person because of that.
But what about the inappropriate pictures, like her sitting on a pile of sand corpses while hugging boy? Is hugging porn now or something? There's also pictures of her in boy and bunny outfits. Woo, so scandalous. None of this stuff is actually hardcore corn, it's just softcore corn. This kept on escalating until Cindy, she sent the same not safe for work essaying comic to this minor, and requested this minor to draw even more corn of the character of Boy and Nightmare Sans. From the censoring job, it looks like a few parts of this comic would have been legally classified as hardcore corn. The absolute worst thing Cindy sent was this picture of Boy fingering her avatar. However, it should be noted that the doc maker was not the one who censored this out. It was actually Cindy herself. When I first saw this, I thought, yeah, Cindy's guilty. But when I found out that she censored the worst parts of this comic herself, it made her look far less guilty than I was previously led to believe.
It only gets worse as the second half of the video is an interview with Cindy herself, but this so-called interview was basically just 45 minutes of them shooting the shit together and Jar very clearly not taking anything serious at all, including moments where he is very clearly making Cindy uncomfortable in a particular moment that raises a lot more than just a few eyebrows.
Okay, what you did was bad. Very bad. You better thank your vagina. If you had a pee-pee, you would be, oh man, it would not be good for you if you had a pee-pee.
Aw, man.
Yeah, but people are more forgiving when women do this. We've tried so many times with women. Like we gave you guys the right to vote. 10 years later, Great Depression. Coincidence? I think not.
God.
Yeah, like, can I tell you the worst part about being a guy?
That you have to pay extra for mayonnaise?
No.
Sorry, that's. Oh God, I miss Jack. All right.
Okay, so I'm at the pool, just relaxing. 16-year-old girl shows up in her bikini. I realize I have to get the fuck out of there right now because, like, I'm not going to be paying attention. I'm going to daydream. I'm going to look in her general direction, and then suddenly a situation is going to happen. So I realize, like, whenever I see a 16-year-old girl in a bikini while I'm at the pool, I'm like, well, time to go home.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, be thankful that you're a woman. Like, I know it sucks that you have to deal with periods and men not taking you seriously and men not listening to you.
Now this story would not only go wild in the remnants of the ArtCC, as Jar's sheer ineptitude was that astounding to see, it would also make its way to the wider and more general commentary community scene, more specifically the streamer Chud Logic. Now Chud's side of the internet is nowhere close to the ArtCC. He's abrasive, loud, says retard and a whole lot of slurs online, something that the more liberal ArtCC circles absolutely despise. And worst of all, he's British. He would find himself watching Jar's response that he had already covered the Cinny story prior, and in turn would lambast it for being as awful as it was. In a move that I don't understand even to this very day, Synnibear03 would think to herself, man, you know what? The only guy who is relevant and has over 200,000 subscribers who tried to defend me is not getting the response I expected, and will leak all their DMs together while Chud Logic was live on the air. This utter betrayal would open things up far more than anyone ever expected, as it would turn out from the very beginning Jar was already biased towards Cinny by creating a false narrative in his head that she was somehow set up the moment he met her, and in fact would even start to flirt with her by sending a message saying, "Wanna see my cock?" only to then post an image of a chicken. He would continue this flirting by replying to a picture of her cat saying "nice pussy," and at the very end would notably mention how he planned to send his response video to Chud Logic himself in order to use his influence and audience to try and sway public perception, not because he thought he just might like it for content as a fan. The dude even had Cinny draw the thumbnail for his video and had a Discord sleepy time call talking to her on the phone to help go to sleep, and it was all too obvious this guy was clearly not taking any of this seriously and had huge bias to the people looking into it so far. Chud Logic would then get Jar into a stream to interview him about what the hell was going on, in which we also learned that Jar didn't even go through the entire documents made on Cinny, he just saw small parts and called it a day. However, while his situation so far has been mostly about him screwing up the story, the way Jar answers general questions and acts throughout is far more interesting, so let me show you some of the highlights.
Did you look at the messages between Synnibear and Eno in full?
Admittedly, no. I skimmed through a lot. I
hold all the keys. I hold all the cards. And I have another thing to put to you. Now, before I do that, is there anything that you wish to admit to me before I do this?
I'm trying to think here. Didn't expect you to ask that. Admit. Well, in past videos, I've said very sus stuff that people have taken the very wrong way, and I have been friends with people who've gotten exposed and, you know, cut them off.
Okay.
There's a lot I've done, and I just ask, what is it, and just ask what it is, because you know what? Maybe there is something, and I just want to rip the Band-Aid off.
Mr. Robots, your logs with Synnibear were leaked to me an hour ago.
Oh, okay. I have no romantic interest. I'm very friendly with the way I talk. I can show the logs I've had with other people if they'll give me permission, but I'm very friendly. I have a girlfriend. I have no sexual interest in Cinny at all.
But you do, okay, actually, let's say that. Go on.
No, actually, I want to take... No. Okay. Maybe I do have sexual interest in Cinny. I mean, I'm a straight guy, come on. So I'm going to walk back on that, but I have a girlfriend. I'm not... what part of the logs would you like to go over with me?
And then you send a picture of a chicken, of a rooster, of some sort of...
that's my humor.
Okay. Do you think it's appropriate to joke about sending a picture of your penis to someone who you're interviewing who is accused of grooming an individual?
Absolutely not.
So why did you do it?
It's just my humor. It's just what I do. I'm not the most mature fellow, and I've sent this same joke to so many other people.
Yo, you're all good. You can finish it up tomorrow, in fact. Yeah. What a cute little pussy.
Tell me when you guys are done with the clip.
I think we heard it from your end, Jar.
Oh, you did? Oh, you want me to finish it?
I mean, that's the whole clip.
Oh, it is? Oh, it said there was more seconds. Yeah, I was talking about the cat. That, again, same with the cock. That's just my sense of humor. I mean, this was eventually going to, like, I knew that the way I joked around would eventually catch up to me. This is why I can't hold down a job, to be honest. And, yep, this is finally out there. Now, I have never seen Synnibear's face, ever. I have borderline no idea what she looks like.
I know that was a long slew of clips, but the story quickly changed from the Synnibear situation to Jar himself, as it was very clear this guy is far more interesting than people initially thought. But that's besides the point, as it was clear this last-ditch effort to defend Synni had failed, and so now with two huge YouTubers' careers in the dust and one wannabe never getting a single smidge of the fame he wanted, it was time to see how the aftermath of their endeavors went. On October 17th, Synni would take down her response video and the planned part 2 would now never come to fruition, claiming that she was basically too caught up in her head and emotional on how she handled things. She would state she has had an issue over sharing NSFW topics with people in general and was going to therapy to help with it, and that would officially be a wrap on the internet career of Synnibear03, a storied artist who instead of getting their act together, continued to dig into their degeneracy and ended up becoming one of the nastiest things a person could become online. Meanwhile, back in Kumo's corner, for reasons that I still can't fully grasp due to his erratic nature, would end up getting into a Discord call to berate Synni after the plan to rejuvenate her career went down to shitter. A Discord call that would be leaked by another one of Synnibear's defenders named Romantic Goblin on October 15th. In said video, Kumo would basically state how it feels she's acting worried and scared with him, yet has been acting the exact opposite when talking to Jar, and that it frustrates him because it feels she's just yanking people around to make him pity her in whatever way she could, and in this case, at the cost of his reputation. However, the way he talks throughout very much sounds like he was mostly just jealous that she went to Jar instead of him, given he had like 200,000 subscribers compared to his paltry 2,000. And so while it was entertaining to watch him grill Synni, you can't help but get a strange feeling knowing this grilling isn't fully because she's a gross person. Also, it turns out that Synni made Enno read out the Boy and Nightmare Sans comic on Discord before but never told anybody, with that reason obviously being because it would make her even look worse.
Anyone else you've spoken to in our group, our support group for you, you've had a completely different attitude from what you said in that interview. In that interview, you were not the anxious, paranoid, remorseful Synnibear. You were the Synnibear who's like confident and making steps towards repairing her career rather than bettering herself and making sure she doesn't make the same mistakes again. Like, I knew how this guy was. I warned you how he was. I told you what position you were in, and I was very conscious and scared on your behalf because of what position you're in. Jar could have you, and that's probably what he was trying to, like, that was probably his dream, his end goal. You know, like, how could he get caught in a cheating scandal or dumped by his girlfriend if nobody will believe it ever happened?
You had Enno read out the f***ing comic in VC?
Like the dialogue. I didn't, I didn't think to mention it. It just didn't seem like a...
It's honestly not really too interesting of a watch, as it's mainly just Kumo ranting and Synni realizing she has literally nobody left on her side, and that would be solidified as on October 22nd, Kumo would delete his Twitter and YouTube channel as he officially dipped out of the internet once and for all. Meanwhile with Jar, well, his career was over once he entered himself into the Synnibear defense squad, as he would get absolutely shat on as we already saw, but he would also get into his own set of allegations in the mix. I go over all that in my 2-hour video covering ACC, so if you want more, just go check out that chapter on him. But to fast forward to the more relevant parts here, he would end up making a response video to the Synnibear stuff plus all those other allegations in January 2025. However, this response video is absolute garbage, as he basically just says he's really autistic and goes on to self-report and air out a lot of embarrassing details about himself instead of just focusing on his wrongdoings and explaining how his mindset led to him making those mistakes.
I would like to apologize to my girlfriend, my roommate, and my neighbor for not listening to them. You guys know me best, and you are looking out for my best interest. I should have listened to you guys, and now I'm facing the consequences for my actions. The only compliment I gave her was calling her Mamacita. Here's the audio clip.
Alright, Mamacita, I'll hit you up when I get home.
I also have ship art of me and another YouTuber. It's Manga Common, who is a guy. It's Rule 63 versions of our avatars kissing in underwear.
Now, the whole world pretty much knows what I jerk off to.
First of all, yeah, I always had a thing for Jade Animation's avatar. I've never kept that fact hidden. I even asked her out on a date at the end of my first Afpina video, and then she immediately uploaded a video saying that she was asexual.
Also, it turned out that the Synnibear defense video he posted wasn't actually the final product. It was a work in progress that he panic uploaded after Kumo leaked it out to the public once he found out Cinny and him were now working together. Many people theorize and speculate on why Kumo would do such a thing, such as leaked DMs or Cinny reveals Kumo cut her off just days before that ranting call they had because of some unknown DM with Eno that changed his entire mind associating with her, except Romantic Goblin will point out that this is one of the very first DMs they all saw. Clearly, the logic here isn't making any sense, and so the main theory that people accept is Kumo simply got upset that Cindy went to a bigger YouTuber to cover the story, as it meant Jar would get most of, if not all the recognition instead of him were to play out in their favor, and trust me, from the little I know about the guy myself, that's a pretty spot-on theory indeed. Now one might think, wow, this Synnibear03 exposure has been an absolute clusterfuck with the most unlikable of people all gathered up for an eventful fall 2024, but at least it's finally over. Is what I would be saying if it wasn't for this one extra thing that would come out a little bit after, because if there's one thing we know about this side of the internet, it's that this shit just never seems to fucking end. On October 19th, 2024, Birdie would accuse Synnibear03 of stealing her cat Scorp and claims that she's going to neglect him, showing various pictures of him to her fanbase. He would even claim that the apartment they lived in was a filthy mess with cat litter scattered about and that their other cat Stupid was not having his nails trimmed, saying that he would fight hard to get Squirt back in his possession. It sounds like there was some more stuff brewing behind the scenes in this story, and it turns out that was indeed the case, as on November 7th, almost a month later, Cinny would upload the video, "Where's My Cat?" A quick 12-minute dive revealing that Scorp was actually stolen from her by Birdie and not the other way around like he was lying to the public about. In said video, Cinny refutes the claims of the apartment being a mess and that she was the one doing all the cleaning whilst Birdie lazed around the place and did nothing, and also that Birdie doesn't even have the cat right now but rather gave it to another friend of theirs after stealing them back when the exposure went down. However, the most interesting part is when Cinny would figure out where Scorp was currently living, that being at somebody named Izzy's house, except when she showed up to get him back, Izzy would refuse to hand him over, and so the two had a back and forth between one another, a back and forth that Cinny recorded on her phone as evidence in case anything bad went down.
Hello. I'm here for my cat.
No.
What do you mean, no?
Cynthia, you're not allowed here.
What do you mean?
Cynthia, go home.
Your father let me inside.
Yeah.
Where's my cat?
I'm not going to give her to you.
What do you mean?
Because she's not your cat.
Yes, she is. Where is my cat?
Cynthia, did you buy this cat for Jack?
That doesn't matter.
Cynthia, did you buy this cat?
Izzy, my name is on the paperwork.
Cinny.
He will not take care of her.
Cinny, go home or I will call 911.
And, like, what are they gonna do?
Go home or I will call 911. Go. Cynthia.
Why are you fighting me so hard on this?
Because
you literally, I gave you a letter.
This cat is for Jack. This cat is for Jack, Cynthia.
Give me my cat.
Well, it's my cat now.
What do you mean it's your cat now?
I don't know. You can figure that out. But
figure that out. Okay.
This is despite sending a legal notice to Izzy for her to give her all her items back, but she decided to keep the cat instead, meaning there was now this whole epilogue of sorts currently in the mix because they didn't want to give her the cat back. Seeing that people were now aware that he stole the cat and lied weeks prior for internet brownie points, Birdie would start to tell people to not trust Cindy's word and that she's actually the one lying and is only doing all this because she hates him and it's an easy way to get back at him. However, Birdie would also start to freak the fuck out and rant on Twitter for a bit before coming back to his senses and deleting all of that mess with this final slew of posts saying that he'll be trying to deal with all this privately from now on. It's not a particularly interesting thread and is Birdie mainly just accusing Cindy of lying again or leaving out context in her video, saying that she wasn't abusive or neglectful to the cats when living together and claims this is all an attempt to get her channel back and running by getting back at him, before meandering off towards the end saying he won't forget to update people in the future about all this. However, the very next day, Birdie would make a post saying that he's tired of being the hot drama of the week again and is going to be dipping off the site for a bit in the meantime. While a lot of people, including myself, doubted this to be the case knowing how Birdie is like as a person, he would hold true to his word as this has been the last post on his Twitter account as of this video. So much for keeping people updated with the cat story, but I digress. Izzy would also come out on Twitter to reveal her account on the site, seeing that she's now part of this story, so now people had that to keep up with as well. On November 10th, a friend of Cindy's named Puppy Crayon Box would make a Twitter thread stating that she was able to get her, Izzy, and others into a group chat together to discuss the whole Scorp situation. To make a long story short, though it seemed that Cindy was still intent on following through with legal action to get the cat back if Izzy didn't do so herself anytime soon, they all agreed to not give him to Birdie at any point in time, which was a very good sign to see, as it meant that some people were still saying about the whole situation surrounding him currently. Puppy Crayon Box would also leak some extra DMs between Cindy and Kumo, in which Kumo was basically plotting up a defense for her threatening to kill Birdie by telling people she was high on drugs because she took a THC gummy around that time period. These leaks also aren't really that interesting to read, to be honest, but it's just kind of funny seeing the lengths and stretches in logic going on behind the scenes before their friendship blew apart weeks later. On November 22nd, Izzy would claim that Cindy agreed to officially hand over Scorp to her, so at least that whole debacle seemed to be over finally. Is what I would be saying were it not for a document that Izzy would release on May 13th, 2025, a document that, while is mostly about her time around Birdie and the various bullshit that they went through dealing with him for the past few months, did give a small update about Cindy and her cat. To make a long story short, Izzy would decide to give up Scorp, who had since been renamed to Latte, back to Cindy that past April, alongside feeling guilty about the whole ordeal for the past few months in hindsight. A friend of Cindy's would post some images of Latte around this time period as well, showing that Izzy wasn't lying or anything like that. And while there are discussions online on whether Izzy truly got legal ownership of Latte or not, the cat seems to be safe and happy after all of this mess, so at least this entire shitfest has finally been dealt with. Now, Birdie leaving the internet back in November might have been the smartest move he's ever made in his life, because for the first time ever, people outside the animation and artist corners of the internet were learning about who he is, that being someone with a very unhinged and repulsive nature, with allegations of child grooming, abuse, and other nasty things being thrown into the mix. While there are many things about Birdie that people were only just discovering, there's a little bit more about him to talk about that are relevant to this video, because in a very unsurprising reveal, it turns out that he was still on his shit both during and after everything went down. In December 2024, Izzy, after being fed up dealing with Birdie's antics, would reveal that Birdie, despite making that GoFundMe to help pay for rent and important things for the household, instead spent a bunch of that money on something called a pony package, presumably My Little Pony plushies and other merch. Birdie would end up doing this on multiple occasions as it was clear he was enjoying the free money he swindled from people online, now adding stealing money from people to the laundry list of controversies surrounding it. He even bought a wheelchair sometime in November to help with his supposed health issues, but given he's willing to use that GoFundMe on random junk instead of actually trying to get his own place for rent like he said, it was clear things were afoot behind the scenes. Notably enough, as this info was gaining more and more traction online, someone claiming to be Birdie's temporary PR manager would chime into DMs as somebody on Twitter in January 2025, in which they claimed that the money they spent on the MLP merch was from his commissions and not from the GoFundMe. That's despite the simple fact that Birdie could have just not spent that supposed commission money on random merch given he was in such a bad financial spot in his life according to himself just months ago, but you can't expect somebody like him to have any common sense or self-awareness, so it is what it is. That same January, Izzy would update people about Birdie some more as well, such as how he left the room he was staying in a complete mess without cleaning it up after hastily moving out, and notably enough, left behind the very wheelchair that he supposedly needed so badly for his physical ailments in the corner over there. He even bled through the sheets onto their bed and stained it in the process, with Izzy only finding out afterwards and helping clean up the room as he never told them or his other housemates about it. The best way I feel to wrap this up will be the reveal a month later in February that Birdie left the ashes of Chara, the ferret he molested that I mentioned earlier, back at Izzy's place in his rush to move out, showing even the oldest of plot threads coming full circle here. Now there is a whole lot more having to do with Birdie, but this is a Synnibear03 video and not a Birdie one. But I think after seeing the shit he was putting Izzy through, it was safe to say he was still on his bullshit despite everything he said during his attempted comeback. That's also not to mention, given the fact the wider internet was now learning about him, they would come to figure out that despite his comeback video and the comments being positive at the time, he was actually still deranged and all those supposed positive changes he's made to better himself simply never happened. Birdie would have a habit of blaming his issues on the trauma he's endured online and so led a lot of people on by means of pitying himself, but it was exactly that, just leading people on with false promises of change or leaving details out that could make him look bad while still being the same person as before. Add that alongside the Birdie story itself breaking containment and making its way to outsiders who just learned of his awful online activity, it was clear that the attempted comeback wouldn't hold true much longer, and as you saw, it was only 2 months after the Synnibear03 story broke that Birdie saw the writing on the wall and dipped out as things got out of his control once again. It's certainly one hell of a way to live your life, but at least this era of Birdie's online activity was officially over now that his involvement with the Synnibear03 story was finally wrapped up. As you can see, this whole Synnibear03 mess was one of the most deranged rabbit holes I've gone down in a minute. Given it's been a while since we've last heard from the major players of this entire mess, let's see if they've been up to anything in recent times. Both Birdie and Kuma have been off the internet after their respective departures, though Birdie's sister Alvina will post a picture back in February 2026 at a sci-fi convention together in Washington, meaning he's likely back living with his folks doing whatever it is he's currently doing now. Jar has found himself a normal job and now makes videos as a hobby given he barely pulls in any views, but at least he doesn't seem to be wallowing in his pity for his fuck-ups and is moving forward with his life, so it is what it is, I suppose. He also has this crazy funny new intro where he calls himself just a Jewbot with stereotypical Jewish music playing, an intro that hopefully y'all will be able to listen to in fear of YouTube's copyright system giving me the boot.
Shabbat shalom, Daddy's home. Get ready for another exciting episode of Just the Jewbot.
Shout out to my channel members for helping support my content, and shout out to my bestie tier members Nami, Cody, Laura Hertzman, Sheems, Cult of Mystical, Hyper AKV, and Trendy Dragon. Go check out my Patreon and YouTube memberships if you want to support me yourself in the description below, and I hope you join as soon as you can. Now Synnibear03 herself, despite most people assuming she would never come back to her channel after what she did, would actually prove those doubters wrong as on February 20th, 2026, she would upload a brand new 9-minute video to the channel titled Final Apology, giving people the unexpected epilogue they never wanted to begin with. She opens up basically just saying that she regrets her older apologies and this was now her 3rd attempt at making one, and then gets into how she met Eno to begin with and how she never realized just how bad she was acting with him at the time. She then expresses remorse for the stuff she put Eno through and apologizes to Birdie for making him uncomfortable as well when living with him, even apologizing to Sock.Clip for their whole little beef as well, before anything's off again saying she's sorry to those she hurt.
I don't know what will come of this video, but I hope I can give everyone some peace of mind knowing that I've learned a very painful but ultimately needed lesson. I know I've hurt a lot of people, both directly and indirectly, and I want everyone to know that I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt any more people. And I honestly think I've come a very long way from where I was before. It's been a difficult process, unlearning my harmful behaviors, and it took longer than I'd like to stop feeling sorry for myself long enough to truly reflect on what I had done and why I did it.
Synni would pin a comment saying this isn't an attempt at a comeback and that part of the reason she made this apology public was because it would be inappropriate to contact Eno privately given their past and that her other victims can make the choice to forgive her or not. Now the comments themselves are a shit show with most people continuing to either make fun of her or call her a creep, but Eno themselves would actually pop in soon after the video dropped and say their own piece. It's a pretty long read, but you can really see how Eno is still struggling to move past all this after going through so much shit over a year ago, even revealing this news made its way to their friends and family as it seemed everybody learned what happened. Hell, she even says she got grounded from her parents at one point in time, meaning that this was really making its way into their real life. I don't want to spend too much time breaking things down piece by piece as it's mostly more of the same, but the overall picture paints somebody who is still trying to move on from all this, and it seems that Synni reopening these old wounds wasn't a very smart idea as it looked like things are now heading back to square one once again in their life. Now, I assume by now Enno is doing much better, knowing that majority, if not all the people are on their side and can at least empathize with what they went through. It's just a shame that Cindy was the one who brought all of this back to light instead of just letting bygones be bygones. I also assume this will be Cindy's last attempt at an apology video and she wouldn't try again for a 4th time in the future, so at least this story has officially found its unceremonious and unexpected ending almost 2 years after everything went down.